The defining events of the 2020 pandemic era, global lockdowns, economic interventions, and shifting mandates, carried an official explanation. This disruption was presented as the messy result of leaders making human mistakes during a crisis. We generally rely on Occam's razor to process this, the idea that the simplest explanation is usually the right one. It is easier to attribute a failing policy to human error than to consider a complex design. However, this logic reaches a limit when institutional errors consistently produce the same result: massive benefits for a specific elite group across entirely unrelated fields. This model illustrates Bayesian inference. The odds of multiple independent variables randomly aligning to produce a specific outcome decrease with every new variable. This is Occam's paradox. When a chain of accidents becomes so improbable, the simplest explanation is a structured plan. This investigation applies that Bayesian threshold to the evidence of the last 3 years to see if the data supports a theory of accidental failure. The analysis begins in late 2019, establishing the preparatory phase before the public was aware of a viral outbreak. In October 2019, global health and security organizations conducted Event 201, a tabletop exercise simulating a coronavirus pandemic. The simulation focused heavily on how to manage information and suppress dissent, rather than exploring treatments. Simultaneously, the Transition Integrity Project brought political insiders together to wargame media manipulation and electoral chaos, anticipating the exact voting changes that would soon be justified by a health crisis. While these simulations were running, the Wuhan Institute of Virology was using U.S. funding to conduct gain-of-function research on bat coronaviruses, with the goal of increasing their infectivity in human models. That same month, Wuhan hosted the World Military Games. Thousands of international military personnel gathered at the site of the viral research, creating a global distribution vector. By the end of 2019, we have a tailored pathogen, a global distribution vector, and a pre-planned information control framework. When these independent variables align in the same window, the Bayesian probability of coincidence moves towards zero. When the crisis arrived, the response launched across 4 distinct societal domains simultaneously. On the health front, officials enforced strict vaccine mandates long after data confirmed the shots did not stop transmission. These mandates functioned as a demographic filter, identifying individuals who prioritized civil liberties over institutional compliance. On the information front, a new censorship industrial complex was built. Agencies and tech platforms coordinated to ensure nodes of dissent were monitored and targeted for removal. And the economic front, the M1 money supply expanded by 80% in 2 years. This liquidity inflated the assets of the wealthiest decile, while the resulting inflation taxed the working class. On the political front, the pandemic justified rapid changes to nationwide election procedures, including the mass use of mail-in ballots. Private tech billionaires injected hundreds of millions of dollars into local election offices, which created administrative inequities across different voting districts. Stacking these 4 domains reveals a level of coherence that challenges the theory of isolated panic. The results of these policies across health, information, money, and politics all point toward the same outcome. Today, the viral threat has subsided, but the structural changes to society are still in place. We see 3 clear outcomes locking into a permanent structure: the largest upward wealth transfer in history, a centralized censorship apparatus, and a modified electoral infrastructure. This authority to bypass democratic institutions has been integrated into the legal and administrative frameworks of most nations. The results of the pandemic response, consolidated wealth, information control, and altered elections, mirror the specific goals outlined in the preparatory exercises of 2019. When we look at the world as it exists now, we have to consider the likelihood that these 3 years were a sequence of thousands of perfectly aligned mistakes. The final question is whether these 3 years represent a temporary emergency response or the construction of a permanent architecture for centralized societal control.